Welcome to Recovery, the Whole Enchilada. And we discuss topics around recovery and life and how we can navigate some challenging times and also embrace joyful times. I'm Peg McDermott, and I'm here with my lovely co-host,
Heather, and great to see you.
Yes, good to see you too. And today we're going to be talking about family dynamics and family dynamics around our biological family, and it can also be around our family of choice. And Heather and I found it to be timely because we are in the holiday season, and family dynamics around this time of year can be challenging at times. Also, would love to get your comments and what your thoughts are around this particular episode, and also any other topics that you would like us to cover. But for now, let's talk about family dynamics. Heather, you want to get us started?
I'm laughing because if you would have talked to me maybe 10 years ago, I would be flipping out at this time of the season, of the holidays, trying to please everybody, trying to figure out whose place to go, what family to go, which on Christmas Eve here, Christmas Day there, just all the different travel plans and who's going to be at my house and that kind of thing. But what's interesting, and I want to just celebrate the fact as we get older, this becomes less of an issue because there's less people in our lives. Can I just say that? And I feel like I think the recovery process, which is so beautiful, is that it matures us and we become less reactive. And I believe that I become more patient with myself. I will say that there are things that pop up, and I think it happens to everyone. I smell the pine needles. I walk into the grocery store of the Christmas trees outside. I'm hearing the Christmas music. I'm seeing lots and lots of candy and candy canes. And these can be really wonderful, like you said from the beginning. These can be really joyful memories. And sometimes they can be memories that are not so joyful. And it can pierce us for a moment. And we go back in time and all of a sudden we're flooded with some thoughts. So the most important thing I think I would want to begin with when it comes to family dynamics is to choose situations that you feel relatively safe in, that you feel comfortable, you feel heard, seen, and valued. And if that's not a possibility, then you limit your exposure in those situations. You make other plans. You pop in, you say hi, I'm only going to stay for a little bit, and then I go somewhere else. And that's just what we do as we are adults in our lives. And no is a one-word sentence.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you.
Right. No, you're right. No is a one-word complete sentence. And this time of year in general was difficult for me. It's not as much anymore. But when it came to my drinking, and I think we might have shared more about this in our last episode, and if you missed that, it was really how to handle our sobriety and our recovery during the holiday season. So if you haven't listened to that, please go back and do so. But what we are talking about is the dynamics around family, around our relationships, and how and what comes up for us in those dynamics. And for me, this was the time of year I drank the heaviest. And I'm sure there were other sort of unconscious issues that drove that, but also a lot of it had to do with the fact that it was just more readily available because there was just a lot more alcohol flowing during the holiday season. And I certainly took advantage of that. And so that can be challenging for me when it comes to family dynamics because there are family members there were family members. Unfortunately, they aren't with us any longer. But my family, especially my brother, would drink during the holidays. And my mom wasn't much of a drinker, and my father had passed away. Thankfully, because had he been around, I think our holidays would be more of a shit show, truly. So I think that was a blessing. I didn't drink for the first few years of holiday celebrations. And it was hard because Tim, my brother, did. And I just noticed how their personalities change. And I was also around other family of choice members who also still drank. And that was difficult. And some I had to let go of. So what I found is trying to let go of this sort of preconceived notion I had around the holidays and that it needs to be this sort of picture perfect time of year, and really learned more about just kind of letting things be and how they sort of evolved. And as my family noticed how much I was changing as a result of recovery, there was pushback. And I wasn't as engaged or as invested in that toxic cycle anymore. And before I was, whether it was political in nature or a sibling rivalry, maybe between Tim and I, and like this codependence my family and I had, making sure that everyone was happy, especially me. I was very codependent, making sure I was sort of like the vigilant one in my family, where I was always watching all of the dynamics and trying to be the peacemaker when necessary. And I started to pull back on that. And I had to do it and evolve over the course of a few years, because the healthier I got, the less tolerance I had around toxic behavior. Whereas before, it felt normal. That just felt like that's the way it's supposed to be when we're super codependent. And I overgave because I wanted everyone to be happy. So I would buy a crap ton of gifts for everybody and went way overboard because I wanted to be loved and accepted in my own family. And I wanted everyone to be happy. And I didn't have any control over that. But I didn't know that at the time. And the healthier I got in recovery, the less tolerant I was. And I could feel the shift within me when that toxic behavior came up, especially after some drinking. And I could feel myself shift, whereas before it felt normal, and it didn't feel normal anymore. It felt very uncomfortable for me. And when I pushed back on certain things, I really got the full on load of anger. And growing up, I was judged. And so for me, that hit a button because I'm like, oh, I better not do that because I'll be judged and I'll be ostracized from my family. And uh, as I got more comfortable within myself and my sense of self, that became less and less of a fear of mine, being abandoned or pushed out of the family dynamic. Because remember, we came from a time when we needed family just to stay alive. And that's baked into our DNA. And if we were thrown out of the cave, we were going to get eaten by the tiger. And so that is a very deep need to be a part of something, especially the family unit. And when I was pushing back against those dynamics, and it doesn't mean I didn't love my family any less, I loved them actually more. But I also loved myself more. And that's why I love them more, because I did there was more love capacity for me. And I had to either let them go, as you said earlier, go for a shorter amount of time, having an exit plan and talking to my network and my sponsor about it and letting them tell me, it's okay if you have to leave, Peg. It's okay. It's not a criminal offense. You can leave to take care of yourself. So when you entered your family dynamics, whether from childhood or even in adulthood with your own immediate family, like what did you do to take care of yourself and create a plan to really protect your recovery?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm having a flashback, a memory come back up. I hadn't thought about this in quite a while, but I believe in the last episode I mentioned there was Christmas Eve party with my husband's family, and there was a lot of drinking, and the kids didn't get to open their presents till later. And I came to it actually manifested in a way that I decided I was never going to do that again. I made a conscious decision. No. Fast forward maybe 2 or 3 years into sobriety now, I decide to have people at my house on Christmas. And so it was a big experiment. And I ran it by people, and I actually had a friend in recovery have her family there as well. And so having her there, sh what actually turned out was that she was my witness to the insanity. But I made the request to people in the family, you can bring your own bottle and leave with your own bottle. Because again, I was trying to be neutral because it's my problem, not your problem. And I was wanting to allow a space to have family together for my children to be around their family. I mean, this is basically why I was driven to do this. Well, they abused alcohol, got very drunk, said really obnoxious things to my friend who was sober with me. And it was a great lesson because you can imagine I never did that again. Okay. And so from that, I learned a boundary because I have people that I work with that want to do the same thing. Bring your own bottle, leave with your own bottle. Maybe at this point of my life, Peg, I would say you can bring your own bottle and you can leave with your own bottle, but there will be no abusive drinking around me. If you want to socially have a drink, that's one thing. But if you're going to abuse alcohol in front of me, that's another thing. Because this is my house and these are my boundaries. All
Love it.
right. I did not say this past Thanksgiving. And there was some abuse of alcohol. And I'm talking not just like having a drink or so. I'm talking about like going over the limit. And I had not said that because it's been so long. I haven't had people over. I haven't done this in a while. And I forgot to add that one little caveat, no abusive drinking. Well, I addressed it. The person apologized the next day. I addressed it and I said, that can't happen again. I mean, I am very neutral about drinking. People can drink, but when you're overdoing it, it can't happen in my space. I'm an alcoholic recovery. It is not safe for me. This is my house and I don't feel safe. And the person apologized and said it wouldn't happen again. That's another example. We live and we learn, right?
Absolutely. Good for you. That's a
Yeah, that was
great
not
form.
easy.
No, I'm sure it wasn't. Did you get a lot of pushback on it, even from your own family? How did that go down?
That's some little bit of pushback, like, well, such and such, they were drinking with the person and they were drinking and the person was trying to drink with them at the same amount. I'm like, no, it doesn't, that's not my, I don't need to even know that. This is my house. These are my rules. And it will come to a point, then there will be no drinking in the house. There'll be no, you can come to my house, we'll have food. There will be no drinking if that comes to that point. But because I cannot have that around me like that. I just can't. Even to this day, as much as I try to be open and cool and hip and bless my one person, they bought a champagne bottle of apple cider, but looked like champagne. Tasted kind of like champagne. I don't want to do it. I don't have any desire, Peg, to drink ever again. You know why? And this is what I keep saying out when I share this. I am so happy to be sober. I don't want to ever live in a different way. I love living like this. This is the best life now for me.
Yes, I agree. And the boundaries piece was hard for me because of that fear of being cast out, whether emotionally or physically asked to leave. And when I was drinking, I was the problem, especially around the holidays, whether it was with family or friends. And when I stopped, when I surrendered to it and said, I can't do this safely, I don't want to do it anymore. I agree with you. I love this life. It's brought a measure of peace and serenity that I always drank after. And it's nice to have soundness of mind and heart. And my family is no longer with us, as I mentioned, so I don't know how they might be different, but I know I would be different. And when I spend time with very close friends that are like family, those those triggers can still come up because a lot of this one very good friend of mine knew me when I was drinking. And I've gotten a lot healthier. And when we get together, I sense that sort of same codependence and sort of walking on eggshells a little bit. And I've learned, because I don't want to let this person go. I love them too much. So I had to figure out a way to accept certain things with boundaries, with guardrails around it, and make sure that I lead with my adult self and not my 12-year-old who might be triggered and unhappy and wanting to make peace with everything. And because I let her know, that part of me, you're safe. Thank you for everything you've done for me. I got this moving forward. Don't worry about it. And I can immediately feel myself shift to an adult stance. If I go back to that younger self, it becomes very reactive. I become very withdrawn and people pleasing, because that's how I functioned. That's how I was able to survive an abusive upbringing. It's not always with our families of origin. It can be with families that we've chosen. And there's another very dear friend of mine. When I see her, we picked up exactly where we left off. And it's always very calm and loving and peaceful. And I love it. And then there are times with others where there's some tension. And I've learned to accept it. And I've learned to accept people as they are and behaviors as they are, as long as it's not disrespectful or abusive to me. And that includes drinking. And thankfully, I don't have a lot of that in my life today. But I recently went on a cruise, and it was my first time. So I really didn't have any way of really truly knowing how much drinking goes on a cruise ship. And it literally was over Thanksgiving. It was very uncomfortable. And that's the other thing, is I'm not around a lot of drinkers, and I'm not around alcohol very often. And I've noticed now that when I am, like on the cruise, I become very uncomfortable. I don't feel safe. And I learned that about myself. Okay, when I'm around alcohol, even if it's going to a friend's house who there are a bunch of normal drinkers there, what do I do to take care of myself? Because I know now when I am around alcohol or a lot of it, I don't feel safe. So what can I do to feel safe? I go to a meeting. I go to a place, and there was a meeting on the boat, and I went to it, and I was with sober friends. So that in and of itself was like my safety net. And I had to look at this realistically. This is a drinking world. There are people that can drink normally and safely, and that's great. It's good for them. I'm not one of them. And so when I see a lot of alcohol around me, it's poison for me. It's toxic for me. And I can feel that unconsciously. So I've learned, now I know, when I'm around a situation or in a situation where there might be more alcohol than what I'm used to seeing, I need to talk to my sponsor about it beforehand. I need to go there with a sober friend. I need to not go if I know I'm not going to feel safe. And I need to have an exit plan. So coping strategies around this time of year have gotten healthier for me. The coping strategy when I was in my disease of alcoholism or active alcoholism was people pleasing, was avoidance, was lashing out, was all the things that were not healthy responses. And my coping strategies today have changed in that I put myself first in terms of safety. And what do I need to do to set a boundary, to maybe remove myself from the situation, talk to other recovering people like you and say, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. And I just need to hear, I need someone to mirror back to me. Yeah, of course you are. Of course you're uncomfortable. You're an alcoholic. You're in recovery, but you're always going to be an alcoholic. And that, as we get healthier, is not healthy for me. And so I really enjoyed the cruise, and I enjoyed the ports of call and being in another part of the world. That was awesome. And at the same time, if I do it again, prepare myself for that much alcohol around me.
And I think that's huge, is preparation. So I want to share a really creative thing that I have been doing these years when I have gatherings and there's alcohol. I set up in another room crafts to do. So if you think about the intention of parties, oftentimes everybody is just, the food is being made and everybody's standing around drinking their cocktails, right? So now what I have done is put in another room a whole thing out. What I did this year is I did it last year too. I got white porcelain ornaments with waterproof pens, and we painted them. And then we also we cut out little white bags and we made snowflakes and we put little diamonds on them. So
Fun.
here I am with like my grandson, but then everybody else came out. My kids, who are all adult kids, all sat around on the table. Nobody's drinking anything. We're all just doing crafts while we're waiting for dinner. So this is just another option to enjoy the time together, doing something that's fun and not centered around drinking. I think this is a lot of what I think recovery is to create ways of coming together minus the drink in hand, and to have fun ways. So of course I had games out to play, and I know a lot of us do that, the games, but this, for us this year, it seemed like everybody gravitated towards creativity. So we had fun doing that. So it's preparing for parties in ways that we may not have ever thought of. And this has just worked out so well. And I now do this in a lot of different situations now, like even just going on vacation. I think we went to the beach and I had all these little plaques and I said, go out into the beach area and bring back sea oats and different things, and we'll glue them on and make it was like a little plaque of a heart, and make it like a little art thing that represents the beach experience. I mean, so these are the things I'm trying to do, and everybody now is getting very used to me doing it. So my son's girlfriend was like, are we going to do a craft this year? And I was like, so kind of cool.
That is cool. It's a great way of planning ahead too, to set up ahead of time those types of activities, which I think is awesome, by the way. And I know your family, especially your son and daughter, are already artistic because they take after you and your beautiful artwork, and your grandson, I'm sure too. It's the nice distraction. It gets us out of ourselves. It's very immersive, and it's bonding in a healthy way, which is awesome. Yeah, I think what I have found this year and in other past holidays is a sense of grief and loneliness, and more around the fact that I do miss my mom and my brother very much. Because for the most part, even with the challenges we had, our Christmases together were nice. And my mom worked hard to make it a good experience for us. And I miss that. I don't miss some of the dynamics that were sort of baked into that, but I miss them. I miss their energy. And that can be amplified during the holidays. That sense of loss for those that are missing, they're elsewhere. And I do believe they're in a better place. That's my personal belief. And that helps the loneliness. And I can feel very lonely just because I'm in recovery. And that's one of the things around recovery is that sense of loneliness. And I make sure that I'm with people that understand that, and also make it a point of getting to sober-thons or alkathons during the holidays and at 24/7. And I may not know a person in the room, but I'm still with my people. And that really does lessen that sense of isolation and aloneness. And I've also accepted that's going to be a part of my way of being during the holidays. And it's normal. And I don't judge myself for it. And I don't get stuck in it. I just say, this is how I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling some grief and loss. And if I cry and need to cry, I cry. And that helps to lessen its hold on me too, because I acknowledge it and I process it, whether it's with you as a good friend in recovery or others in recovery. Process how I'm feeling, because I don't feel judged. And that was something I wasn't able to do in my family of origin. I wasn't able to talk about feelings, especially those that are amplified around the holidays and this pressure to perform. And that just felt more lonely. I felt more apart from and not a part of. And that's why I love being around my sober community during this time of year, because you understand what's going on. There's no judgment around it. And I feel safe processing what might be going on with me. And I also love getting out of myself and being there for someone else that may be going through the same thing. That helps a lot. And that alleviates a lot of the somewhat heaviness that I can feel during the holidays. That lifts that. It's being of service, being around other recovering people that are suffering this time of year, and really needing that sense of community that we are very lucky to have, and it's rare in the world. The type of community that we have today is rare. And I'm very grateful for it. I'm grateful that this is one of the many gifts that have come as a result of getting sober, is this sense of family that feels so much healthier than a lot of what I grew up with.
Yeah, we are very lucky. And I want to just add one little segment here, because this is me. I like to say these days, I'm Heather, I'm in recovery and discovery. I love that, because I still am discovering things about myself. And I know that every holiday, there is an emotional hunger I have for my family, for my mom and my dad. There's a little girl that wants that back again. There's something in me that's yearning for that. And I have to be very awake and aware that I can't feel that emotional hunger with a lot of the overeating that I tend to do. Because everyone's drinking, I am feeling like, and I'm just being honest with you, because this seems to happen to me every single year, Beg. So this year I'm trying to do it differently, but I just feel like I'm missing out. When there's that FOMO feeling, I'm feeling of missing out, and I will eat more desserts, or I'll eat a candy cane, not just a little one, but a big one. And so I just want to note that I am a work in progress. It's progress, not perfection. But I do want to address, like, there is this hunger that still kind of exists in a very small part of me. And I want to love her, and I want to feel, if I'm feeling sad, I want to feel sad, instead of like take a candy cane and stick it in my mouth. Okay. I'm just saying that to just note that there are healthier ways to deal with what's a lot of feelings. There's a lot of feelings. And sharing this with my husband, who is a normie, he says, we all feel this way. We all have memories that come back. You're not alone with this. There is these feelings that happen. And I mean, does he eat a cake over it? No, but I could. I'm just kidding. But this is what I'm just going to share that, because that's something I want to address too, because that's not helpful. That doesn't make me feel good as I go into situations. So I just want to put that out there.
I 100% agree with you. And I find myself doing the same thing is eating a lot more sugar,
Yeah.
which isn't there in moderation. It's okay. Because again, just as it was with alcohol, there's a lot of it around me. And I love what you said about just being super aware of our consumption and the motivation. Like if I've had, which is not a bad thing, but if I've had one piece of dessert, my thinking is, well, two will be better. And I have to remember, no, that's not going to be healthy for me. And I'll have a sugar crash. And I don't want that, but I will have one. So I don't have that sense of deprivation. But it's, again, relearning that one's okay. Because I used to think 10 would be much better. And one is just fine. But that is a result of my feeling full anyway, full of a sense of love for myself and for others. And this has come from my higher power. It wasn't anything that was, I was able to get external to me in this world. I really had to depend on a higher power to start filling that emptiness. And the more I felt that getting more of a sense of peace and fullness, the less I needed to revert to something that wasn't healthy. And at one time, that was alcohol. At another time, it was people and relationships and sex or gambling. I never was really much of a gambler, but on the ship, they have casinos and I played a little bit and it was fun. But I was like, God, I can definitely see why this would become an addiction. Right.
Mhm.
And so I was able to just lose a little bit of money and walk away. It was okay. And I don't know if I would have been able to do that in my active years.
And so, Peg, this is pretty much why we have this podcast, because we want the full enchilada. Because we let go of the alcohol, and then we realize there's something else here. There's a character defenses. There's maladaptive ways that we cope. So, but we want the whole package. We want that joy. We want that peace. And so, it's not something that goes away. I mean, I liken this to like, I know I've said it before, but like, this is like diabetes. It's something that's going to need management our whole life. But what we're really trying to get to is we want to have emotional sobriety. And so what I want to have with the family dynamics in my life and in the gatherings that we're in, we want to protect our emotional sobriety that's the most important thing. And just to share that last night, there was a party at the yoga studio that I'm at. And I love that the owner of the studio does not allow alcohol at our parties. And she's I think this is something that we've just started to do together, but she had a craft because I told her about the crafts. And so now she had a craft for us to do, which was so much fun. 20 people all sitting around tables, making a craft and then having all this high vibe food. And then she had a concert for us, for a yoga concert at the studio. So there are places and spaces that we can still get that safety. And so stepping outside of the box sometimes is a good thing, as long as it feels like it's set up in a way that's going to protect my emotional sobriety. So that to me is the journey. We want that whole enchilada, and we want that emotional sobriety to be safe.
Right on, sister.
You know,
I love it.
so that
Yes. And with that, we want to thank you for joining us for this episode of Recovery, the Whole Enchilada. Next time, we're going to be talking about, as we get toward the end of the year, financial challenges and financial management and transitions and the things we do around our financial life and our goal life as we transition into a new year. And I hope that you won't miss it. It should be a very good exchange between my friend Heather and I. And do make sure to follow us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Your reviews mean a whole lot to us, and it helps us to make sure we give back more to you. And we love you. Remember, you're not alone on this journey of healing and transformation. And until next time, stay strong and keep growing.
yay.